The graveyard discovery. The silence of deep space was broken only by the steady hum of the human salvage vessel, Fortune's Edge, as it drifted through the asteroid field. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation deck's reinforced glass, her breath fogging the surface as she stared at the sight before them. What stretched across several cubic kilometers of space wasn't just debris. It was a graveyard of dreams, ambitions, and technologies beyond human understanding. Thousands of alien spacecraft floated in the eternal darkness, their hulls twisted and broken from some ancient battle. Ships the size of cities drifted alongside smaller fighters, all caught in the gravitational dance of a nearby dead star. The metal gleamed dully in the starlight, telling stories of a conflict that had ended long before humans had even discovered fire. "Captain," came the voice of her communications officer, Lieutenant James Park. "We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council survey ship. They want to talk." Sarah straightened her uniform jacket and nodded. "Put them through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Ambassador Krell, a member of the Zenthari species. His forearms gestured dismissively as his translated words filled the bridge. "Captain Chen, your presence here is unnecessary. Our preliminary scans confirm what we already knew. This battlefield contains nothing of value. The technology is too damaged, too old, too incompatible with modern systems." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "With respect, Ambassador, we haven't completed our own assessment yet." Krell's chitinous features shifted in what might have been amusement. "Humans and their optimism, very well. The Council will grant your species salvage rights to this debris field. Perhaps you can find some scrap metal worth melting down." The transmission ended with what sounded suspiciously like alien laughter. Dr. Marcus Webb, the expedition's xenotechnology specialist, stepped forward from where he'd been studying the preliminary scans. His weathered face bore the excitement of a man who'd spent 30 years dreaming of this moment. "Sarah, they're wrong. Dead wrong. Look at these energy signatures." He pointed to his tablet, showing readouts that meant nothing to most people, but everything to him. "These ships might be damaged, but their core technologies are intact. We're looking at 4 different alien civilizations worth of engineering, all in one place. The question is," Sarah said, "can we do anything with it?" From the back of the bridge came a gruff voice. "Captain, with your permission, I'd like to take a closer look." Chief Mechanic Rosa Martinez stepped forward, wiping her hands on a rag that had seen better decades. She'd spent most of her life making broken things work again, and her eyes held the same gleam that Webb's did. "I've never met a machine I couldn't improve, alien or otherwise." Sarah made her decision with the kind of instinct that had kept her alive through 3 wars and countless dangerous salvage operations. "All right, people. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to take apart everything these other species couldn't figure out, and we're going to make it work." The next 3 weeks were a symphony of cutting torches, welding sparks, and excited shouting in a dozen human languages. Teams of engineers, mechanics, and technicians swarmed over the alien hulks like ants on a dropped sandwich. What they found amazed even the optimists among them. The Vrexhai ships had hull materials that could absorb energy weapon impacts and redistribute the force across their entire structure. The Cathari vessels possessed gravity manipulation systems that defied human understanding of physics. The ancient Noxtai battle cruisers mounted weapons that could tear holes in space itself, while the mysterious 4th civilization had developed shield technology that bent light around their ships. "The problem," Webb explained to Sarah as they stood in the makeshift workshop they'd established in the Fortune's Edge's cargo bay, "is that none of these technologies were designed to work together. Each species developed their systems in isolation. They're like puzzle pieces from 4 different puzzles." Rosa looked up from the Vrexhai power core she'd been elbow deep in for the past 6 hours. "That's where you're thinking too much like an alien, Doc. You're trying to make them work the way they were originally designed. But what if we don't?" She gestured to the workbench where her team had been busy. "Look at this. We take the Cathari gravity generator, but instead of using it for propulsion like they did, we use it to create artificial gravity wells that bend the path of enemy projectiles. We mount it inside a Vrexhai energy absorption hull that can handle the power feedback. Then we use Nox-Tie weapons modified to work with human targeting systems, because let's face it, we're better shots than any of these species ever were. Webb stared at the hybrid components scattered across the table. That's not how any of this is supposed to work. Exactly, Rosa grinned. It's how it's going to work. The first hybrid vessel took shape over the following months. It wasn't pretty. No one would mistake it for the sleek, elegant ships that the various alien species preferred. It looked like what it was, a patchwork of different technologies held together by human ingenuity and an alarming amount of industrial adhesive. The crew nicknamed it the Mongrel. When word reached the Galactic Council about humanity's progress, the reactions ranged from amusement to outright disbelief. Ambassador Krell's species had spent centuries trying to understand just one aspect of Cathari technology. The idea that humans could successfully integrate multiple alien systems into a single functional vessel was preposterous. They're playing with forces they don't understand, Krell told his colleagues during a council session. Mark my words, their first test flight will be their last. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Mongrel as her crew ran through final system checks. Every reading on every display was in the green. But she knew that meant nothing. Half of these systems weren't supposed to work together, and the other half weren't supposed to work at all. All stations report ready, Captain, Park announced. Rosa, how are we looking down there? The chief mechanic's voice crackled through the comm system. All 4 power plants are singing in harmony. The gravity manipulation system is stable, and the weapons array is locked and loaded. She's ugly, but she's ready to fly. Sarah took a deep breath. Around them, the graveyard of alien ships seemed to watch silently, waiting to see if humanity's audacity would be rewarded or punished. All right, people, let's see what we've built. Helm, take us out of the asteroid field, nice and easy. The Mongrel responded to the controls like a living thing. The Cathari gravity systems provided smooth, efficient propulsion, while the Vrexhigh hull materials automatically adjusted to optimize aerodynamics in the thin atmosphere of space dust. The ship moved with a grace that belied its cobbled-together appearance. Systems are stable across the board, Webb reported from the science station, his voice filled with wonder. Energy efficiency is 30% higher than our best human designs. Structural integrity is holding well within acceptable parameters. Now for the real test, Sarah said. Target practice. Rosa, I want to see what our new weapons can do. They die. Set up a series of asteroids as targets, each one tagged with monitoring equipment to measure the effectiveness of their hybrid weapon systems. The first shot from the modified Nox-Tie cannon simply erased a basketball-sized asteroid from existence. The second shot punched a perfect hole through a chunk of rock the size of a building. Captain, Park said, his voice tight with excitement, we're receiving multiple hails from other ships in the area. Everyone wants to know what just happened. Sarah smiled. Tell them we're conducting field tests on our new salvage recovery methods. 3 days later, as news of the successful test flight spread throughout the galaxy, Sarah received another call from Ambassador Krell. This time, the Zenthari diplomat's 4 arms weren't gesturing dismissively. Captain Chen, he said, the Council would like to discuss acquisition of your new vessel's design specifications. I'm sorry, Ambassador, Sarah replied, but we're not quite ready to share. We're still working out some bugs. You understand? What Krell didn't understand was that the Mongrel was just the beginning. In the months that followed, humanity built 17 more hybrid vessels, each one incorporating lessons learned from the previous design. They created a fast reconnaissance ship that could become invisible using modified alien cloaking technology. They built a heavy assault vessel that could punch through any known shield system using a combination of 3 different alien weapon technologies. Most importantly, they proved something that the galaxy had forgotten, that innovation comes not from perfecting existing systems, but from seeing possibilities that others miss. While the established civilization spent centuries trying to understand individual alien technologies, humans took the entire collection and made it into something entirely new. The Galactic Council's dismissal of the graveyard as worthless scrap had been humanity's greatest gift. In trying to protect themselves from competition, they had handed humans the keys to technologies that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. As Sarah stood on the bridge of the Mongrel, watching her growing fleet of hybrid vessels conduct training exercises among the very ship hulks that had created them, she couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about the species that could build starships from garbage and make them fly better than anything that had come before. Behind them, the alien graveyard continued its silent drift through space, but it was no longer a cemetery. In human hands, it had become a birthplace. The fleet that changed everything. 6 months after the first successful test flight of the Mongrel, humanity's hybrid fleet had grown to 43 vessels. Each ship was unique, a testament to human creativity and the boundless potential hidden within what others had dismissed as worthless scrap. Captain Sarah Chen had been promoted to admiral, and her growing fleet attracted attention from across the galaxy, not all of it welcome. The threat came from the Dominion of Zerath, a militaristic empire that had been expanding its territory for the past century. They had subjugated dozens of worlds through superior firepower and ruthless tactics. Their latest target was the human colony of New Geneva, a thriving agricultural world that had become essential to feeding the growing human population in the Outer Rim territories. General Vex, the Dominion's supreme military commander, studied the holographic display showing the human colony's defensive capabilities. His scaled features twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. 15 million humans, protected by outdated orbital platforms, and a handful of patrol vessels. This will be over in a matter of hours. His aide, Commander Czar, gestured toward another section of the display. Sir, intelligence reports indicate that the humans have been experimenting with hybrid vessels constructed from salvaged alien technology. Should we be concerned? Vex's laugh was a harsh, grating sound. Scrap metal held together with human desperation? Let them come. Our fleet consists of 200 purpose-built warships, each one designed and refined over generations of warfare. What can they possibly do against proper military vessels? The Dominion fleet moved toward New Geneva like a predator approaching wounded prey. Their ships were impressive by any standard. Sleek, dark vessels bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields that had never been penetrated. They had crushed every enemy they'd ever faced through overwhelming firepower and superior numbers. What they didn't expect was for Admiral Sarah Chen's fleet to be waiting for them. Admiral, came the voice of Captain Torres, now commanding the heavy assault vessel Patchwork. Dominion fleet has dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. 200 ships, just like intelligence predicted. Sarah stood on the bridge of her flagship, the upgraded Mongrel, watching the tactical display. Her fleet consisted of only 37 vessels. They'd lost some ships to mechanical failures and sent others to protect different colonies. But she wasn't worried about the numbers. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Operation Scrapper. Remember, we're not trying to match them ship for ship. We're going to show them what happens when you underestimate human ingenuity. The battle began unlike any conflict in galactic history. Instead of the traditional approach of facing the enemy head-on, the human fleet scattered like leaves in a storm. The fast reconnaissance ships, nearly invisible thanks to their alien cloaking systems, darted between the Dominion vessels like ghosts. The enemy couldn't target what they couldn't see, and their massive weapons were too slow to track the human ship's erratic movements. General Vex watched in growing confusion as his fleet's targeting systems struggled to lock onto the human vessels. What kind of movement patterns are these? They're completely random. Commander Czar studied his own displays. Sir, I don't think they're random. They appear to be improvising. That was exactly what they were doing. Unlike the rigid military doctrines of the Dominion, human tactics were fluid, adaptable, creative. When one approach didn't work, they tried another. When the enemy adapted to their strategy, they invented a new one on the spot. The Patchwork demonstrated this perfectly. Captain Torres had equipped his ship with a combination of Rex-high energy absorption hull plating and modified Cathari gravity manipulators. When 3 Dominion cruisers focused their fire on his vessel, the hull absorbed the energy of their weapons, and fed it directly into the gravity system. Instead of being destroyed, the patchwork used the enemy's own firepower to create a gravitational anomaly that pulled two of the attacking ships into each other. "Impossible," Vex roared. "Their ship just turned our weapons against us." But that was only the beginning. The reconnaissance ship Ghostwalker had been modified with Noxtai phase shift technology, allowing it to become partially intangible. It flew directly through the shields of a Dominion dreadnought and materialized inside the enemy ship's hangar bay, where its crew deployed boarding parties that captured the vessel from within. The engineering vessel Tinkerer had been equipped with alien nanotechnology that could rapidly repair battle damage. When Dominion fighters swarmed the ship, expecting to overwhelm it with sustained fire, they watched in amazement as their weapons' damage was undone almost as quickly as they inflicted it. Meanwhile, the Tinkerer's crew used their repair nanobots offensively, sending clouds of microscopic machines to dismantle enemy fighters from the inside out. "How are they doing this?" Commander Czar asked, his voice rising with panic. "None of this technology should work together." "Because it doesn't," Sarah explained over an open communication channel that every ship in both fleets could hear. "Every species in the galaxy tries to perfect individual technologies, to make them work exactly as they were originally designed. But humans see connections where others see contradictions. We don't just use technology, we reimagine it." "Prove her point." She ordered the mongrel to demonstrate its latest modification. Dr. Webb had figured out how to combine the shield-bending properties of the fourth alien civilization with human holographic projection systems. The result was a ship that could create dozens of false images of itself, each one solid enough to fool enemy sensors, but intangible enough to avoid damage. The Dominion fleet found itself fighting an enemy that seemed to multiply with each passing moment. Every time they destroyed a human ship, two more appeared in its place. Their own weapons, designed for straightforward combat against conventional opponents, were useless against enemies that could phase through solid matter, absorb energy attacks, bend gravity, and repair themselves faster than they could be damaged. General Vex made his final mistake when he ordered his remaining ships to form a defensive sphere around his flagship, intending to make a last stand. He expected the humans to either retreat or attempt a frontal assault that his superior numbers could repel. Instead, the human fleet did something that violated every principle of military strategy he'd ever learned. They surrendered. "Admiral," Chen to General Vex. Sarah's voice came through clear and calm. "We formally surrender to your superior forces." Vex was suspicious but intrigued. "You surrender?" "Absolutely. Your ships are clearly more advanced, your crews more experienced, your tactics more refined. We can't possibly win against such overwhelming superiority." For a moment, Vex felt the satisfaction of vindication. This was how warfare was supposed to work: superior forces defeating inferior ones through established principles of combat. "Very well. Prepare to be boarded and—" He never finished the sentence. The moment his ships relaxed their defensive formation to accept the human surrender, every human vessel simultaneously revealed that they had been equipped with the same phase shift technology as the Ghostwalker. 37 ships became intangible and passed directly through the Dominion defensive sphere. When they rematerialized, they were inside the enemy formation, surrounded by Dominion ships that couldn't fire without hitting each other. At point-blank range, the human fleet's hybrid weapon systems were devastatingly effective. The battle was over in minutes. "Surrender," Sarah said again, but this time she wasn't the one offering it. General Vex stared at the tactical display showing his fleet's destruction. Of his 200 ships, fewer than 30 remained functional. The humans had achieved something that military strategists would study for generations to come. A numerically inferior force had defeated a superior enemy not through better weapons or stronger ships, but through pure, uncompromising creativity. "How?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because you fought the war you expected," Sarah replied. "We fought the war that was actually happening." The news of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy faster than light. The species that had dismissed human scavenging as the behavior of primitive opportunists suddenly realized they had underestimated something fundamental about human nature. Where other civilizations saw limitations, humans saw possibilities. Where others saw incompatible technologies, humans saw synergies waiting to be discovered. The Galactic Council, which had once laughed at humanity's garbage collecting, now found themselves facing a species that had turned discarded alien technology into the most innovative fleet in known space. Ambassador Krell's request to purchase human ship designs was politely declined, as were similar requests from dozens of other species. "I'm afraid our technology isn't for sale," Sarah explained during her address to the council. "But we'd be happy to share our real secret with anyone interested in learning." She paused, letting the silence build as representatives from across the galaxy leaned forward to hear humanity's great revelation. Stop thinking about what things are supposed to do and start thinking about what they could do. Stop trying to perfect existing ideas and start creating new ones. Most importantly, stop being afraid to fail, because failure is just another word for learning. In the months that followed, human hybrid vessels became the most sought-after ships in the galaxy, not because they were the most powerful, but because they were the most adaptable. Every human ship was different. Every crew found new ways to combine alien technologies, and every battle taught them something new about the art of the possible. The graveyard where it all began continued to drift through space, but it was no longer alone. Other species had begun to establish their own salvage operations, trying to duplicate humanity's success. Most failed, unable to break free from the rigid thinking that had led them to dismiss the battlefield as worthless in the first place, but some succeeded, and those who did learned the most important lesson that humanity had to offer: that progress comes not from perfecting the past, but from imagining a future that doesn't yet exist. As Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the Mongrel, watching her fleet conduct training exercises above New Geneva, she smiled at the irony. The galaxy had given humanity their cast-off garbage, expecting them to be grateful for the scraps. Instead, humans had built a future from those scraps, one that was brighter, more innovative, and more hopeful than anything the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. They had proven that with enough creativity, determination, and willingness to see possibilities where others see problems, even the most worthless scrap could be transformed into something extraordinary. The age of human innovation had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.